G'day folks and welcome to another episode of The Breakdown brought to you by Newstead Brewing, where we're not filming this week for a change of pace. We're at Ballymore. Joining me as always is commentary regular Jaybor Staunton and our special guest this week, Wes, and former USA Eagles backrower, Harry Higgins. How are we, gents?
Live the dream, Sauce.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sauce, for having me. Cheers, mate.
Thanks for coming on, mate. Much appreciated. Now, gents, we're at the halfway point of the season. We've got two clear front runners in GPS and Brothers. And then for those third and fourth spots on the ladder, it's open slather for the rest of the comp. What have you guys made of the season so far?
Yeah, it's been absolutely awesome. To have every team mathematically having a chance at the halfway point to make finals outside of last year probably hasn't happened for a very long time. So it's good to see the competition, at least over the last couple of years, really starting to progress where every team has a shot. And if, you know, the opening 8 or 9 rounds or whatever it's been is anything to go by, it's going to be an absolute belter.
Yeah, agree, Jaybor. Looking forward to the second half of the season. Every game we're going to turn up and obviously look forward to, a very good season and run out towards, championship and end of the season playoffs.
Up the doggies.
Up the dogs.
All right, well, moving forward to our matches from round 9, let's take our first look at North v South. Obviously, the Magpies getting up in the Battle of the Birds, 32-17. Jaybor, what was your overall take on this one?
Look, Souths, as per usual, were very good in patches. 17-0 at half-time and then only winning 32-17. I think it was 20 points to 17 at one stage in that second half. It was Souths of old, and I know ET, it's something that they do want to kick, is not only, not being an 80-minute team. So they're looking really good, playing a really great brand of footy, and on the weekend they didn't have Scotty Malalua and Teddy Teller. And to be able to do that minus those two players, that they're looking really good. Yeah,
no, they played a good game on the weekend. On the other hand, North, they still seem to be really struggling without Matt McGann there to steer the side, mate. And obviously, Duncan Payowa, he adds another element to the Eagles when they play Harry.
Yeah, absolutely. They're, absolute star players. And when they're on the field, their presence really dominant. And that's one of those things when you're in a team struggling like that, getting those guys back just really sets you up for a good position to play.
And obviously, South are now up in that top 4 makeup after what was a slow start to the year. I think we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago where we said, South could potentially have that same sort of storyline that they did in 2015 where they slipped into the top 4 in 4th spot then ended up winning the thing. What do you reckon the potential are, mate, for South for the rest of the season?
Mate, we've only got a couple of rounds left of Super Rugby, and they're looking like they should actually pick up a couple of pretty big names. Obviously, Teddy and Scotty will be back full time, and then Chris Feo, I saw Tia. It looks like he may drop back as well, and he was the one that won it for him in 2015. Let's just be brutally honest here. He actually canted them in there. So, look, if they can get some big-name players back, they should really be able to sort of galvanise a bit and have a good run.
Now, Harry, you guys have already played South twice this year. You played them in the Compass Cup in pre-season, yes, and you played them just before you had the bye. What have you made of their improvement over the season so far?
Yeah, definitely going off Jaybor's point there, the 80-minute factor for the team, from pre-season to when we played them last week before our bye, they were just, for the entire 80 minutes, they were around the corner. Their fitness game was there. They had some direction in the back line. They had the guys on the outside. There was just a lot of weapons for them wherever they went. Their set piece was strong. Admittedly, we're struggling with our set piece at the moment. That's something, we're working on to really strengthen up for towards the end of the season. But again, against with South, the team itself is very complete. And as Jaybor was saying, the players that they get back is only going to add to their overall performance.
So moving on to our second game, Bond versus Sunnybank. Obviously, the Gold Coast students getting up here 28-26 in a narrow clash. Jay, this seemed to be another match where Sunnybank were good in parts, but they didn't manage to close out the match.
Oh, mate. Damon Virtue will be absolutely spewing about this one. They've been so good over the last month against Jeeps, against East, against Bond now. They've been really, really good, and they've been so close to coming away with that much-needed W, and they just weren't able to do it. Even when Adam Gordon went off the field for a red card, they should have been able to close that game out. But they're looking really good in parts. They just need to find that refined edge. Their tight five is starting to stand up a bit. Their back line is starting to unlock. There's just something lacking there. But once they click, they're going to cause some serious issues in this back nine.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they can achieve in this back part of the season and who they could potentially upset to change what the makeup of the top 4 could be. But, Bond, on the other hand, 2 games with Grant Anderson at the helm and 2 wins. So they seem to be on the improve. A couple of guys in particular, Harry Newstead and Joey Fiddock, seem to be really performing for the Gold Coast side. Harry, you guys have played Bond obviously already this season. I think West got up down there.
Yes.
But what have you sort of made of Bond, and where do you see their threats lying in the coming weeks?
Mate, just as you're saying, Harry Newstead, he's a fantastic player, great leader out there. Even just love his demeanour with his players and stuff like that. That leadership going into the second half of the season is going to be crucial. As you were saying, in the front row, tight five, starting to really get some hardened up knocks up the front, which, coming into the final seasons you're going to need. And then you got the guys in the back directing the boys where to be. They're always going to be a difficult team to play, especially down there at that home new field. They're starting to really get some composure down there and getting some ticker about there. So again, looking in towards the second half of the season, it's impressive, and I'm excited to see what they've got.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see in terms of like guys going back there as well. We talk about guys finishing the Super Rugby season and going back. Angus Blythe, Gav Luca, potentially Alex Murphy, depending on what that Wallaby squad ended up looking like going back. Bond could finish this back end of the season with some real momentum, Jay, and maybe finish that one spot higher than they did last year in fifth and finish in the top 4.
Well, if anyone can do it, it's Grant Anderson. He did it last year. They went 0-6 in the first 6 rounds and then went on that run in the back end of the season. And to be brutally honest, I say that a lot, but to be brutally honest, if they got into the finals last year, they would have made it to the big dance. They were playing that well. So if they can do that again, and they're starting to show those small little things that they were doing last year, if they can do that again, they're going to be red hot come the point here.
Moving on to our third match for round 9, Brothers versus Easts. Our top of the table leaders, Brothers getting up 43-12 in this one. Jay, I don't think East played poorly, but Brothers were just classy in this one.
Nah, Brothers were super legit. The week before against Jeeps, they got touched up pretty convincingly as well, and they weren't going to let it happen again against a good Tigers outfit. I think they had the lion's share of possession, almost 70-odd%. They ran for over 700-odd metres, and I think East got 300 plus. And then East had to make almost 200 tackles, and Brothers didn't even crack a ton. So, look, they just dominated that game from go to woe, and they just made a good Tigers outfit look second rate. And they are back, and they're going to go hell for leather in the back end of the season.
And Harry, there's a couple of key Brothers guys that have really been improving, and a couple of guys you've got a bit of history with, mate. Who have you been impressed with?
Yeah, absolutely. Paddy James definitely impresses us from Brothers. Rowan and my old locking mate at West Harbour, Brad Kappa, he's had a fantastic season. And as Jaybor was saying, any team that you're going to have to make that many tackles on, and it's one of those games. It's just fatigue to the point where you guys just put them back in the ground. Some players there, they've just stood out. But again, the team itself is really impressive, all from 1 to 15, and the guys coming on the bench are the guys that finish off the game. It's very impressive, and to see them finish out the season on top would be, not far from the truth,
Yeah, it's been impressive to see what Rod Sive's been able to achieve at Brothers in a short space of time. It's such a turnaround from last year. I think for me at the back end of that match, East were trying to defend really hard and were shooting up, and Brothers seemed to be sort of cutting back on the inside, and one fella to take advantage of this, the hooker, Matty Fessler, mate. What a try.
How sexy. Super sexy stuff there from Matty Fessler. Most front rowers don't get an opportunity to get a 50-metre odd runaway try, let alone on Ladies' Day, right in front of the crowd in the 70th odd minute, untouched. He would have been absolutely cheering about that one. But it's just desserts for a kid who's absolutely killing it. He's braining it in the competition right now. And he's missing his young fellas, outside Harry Wilson and Michael Wood and Fraser McWright. But he's really stepped up in their absence, and he's absolutely killing it at the moment.
Yeah, mate. His try was definitely a highlight for Ladies' Day. And Brothers nearly had a perfect Ladies' Day, mate. But there was one East team to spoil the show.
As I said, Sauce, no one cares.
He's 4th grade. Eat your heart out.
Again, Sauce, no one cares. On to the next one.
Moving on to our 4th and final match of round 9. It was the grand final rematch between GPS and UQ. The Gallopers spoiling the Ladies' Day party over at St. Lucia, 42-17. There was a massive crowd down there, obviously, for the Ladies' Day festivities. And boy, did the boys put a show. It was a massive physical affair down there.
Oh, there was some serious spite on both sides. They had some real vigour, both ball in hand and without. Blokes were smashing each other. Best example, Jono Kent absolutely lighting up Tom Miller early on in that second half. Blindside shot, nothing better, left winger and front rower. But both sides were right up for this one. But Jeeps, I said it in the broadcast, they're playing better footy now than they were last year when they won the premiership. So they, in my opinion, are the team you've got to beat this back night.
Yeah, well, I mean, even Freddie Burke was getting fired up in this clash, which you don't see too often. But, you know, you talk about how good they're playing their set piece. I mean, Harry, you've had to play against it this year. Obviously, they picked apart the West Scrum over at Yoku Road earlier in the season, mate. Do you see anyone really getting the rub of the green against these guys at scrum time?
Mate, it is phenomenal to watch a team like that, you know, compete with such efficiency. Like you're saying, 14 scrums and 1 conceded. Like that's the statistics you want to be going into finals footy, and they're even halfway through the season and putting that sort of stuff up. That's, for me, that's what you want to be from a top side team. And obviously, when you know you're playing Premier Rugby, you know you set the standards early, and that's where you achieve your results towards the end of the season. And Jeeps, hats off to them. They are doing that very, very well.
And I mean, they've also got depth for days. They mismatch Kill, obviously very promising open side flanker for this one. He's got a staph infection, so he's sorting that out. And then Mitch King, arguably one of the best number 8s in the comp, only played the last 10, 15 minutes off the bench. These guys have got depth. They've got blokes they can call on. But putting Jeeps to the side for a second, UQ actually didn't play that bad. That's probably one of the better games they played. They came out of the blocks firing. They got a couple of guys back. Who really impressed you out of this student side?
Brad Twidale at fullback was the best, hands down. Not a big frame, but incredibly strong and really good at beating that first up effort with ball in hand. And then Kalala Manning's back in the mix as well. So getting him in that 13 channel, which has been a real big issue for him earlier on this year, is absolutely huge. And then the man himself, Sam Edwards, 3GH, third grade hooker, built like a hooker, plays like a winger, really good, fantastic on the weekend, really strong ball runner. And I think he picked up the first meat pie right in front of the Ladies' Day crowd as well. So their back line is firing. I think their forward pack just needs to stand up a little bit more. Once they can do that, they can unleash those guys.
Yeah, I mean, last year the UQ forwards, they had Tom Court there to shore up the scrum, which allowed them to have some level of comparability with GPS there to stay in matches and compete. It's going to be interesting to see how they can try and, you know, improve in that space for the remainder of the season and ensure that they're in that top 4 mix. But, you know, moving on to that GPS back line, it's not just their forwards that are performing, but, you know, Alex Samoa out wide, I think that's only his second start for the Gallopers, and boy, did he perform well, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. And you go back to the point of talking about depth, and that's where Jeeps, as a club itself, does so well. You know, across all of the grades and even their Colts, you know, that's where they are very, very strong. Their culture, their teams, their players, they do that so well. It just shows on game day.
All right, so as we mentioned at the start of the episode, it's the halfway point of the season. Obviously, it looks like Brothers and GPS have locked up the top 2 spots. Things could potentially change, but it doesn't look likely. What are your guys' predictions for the top 4? Who do you reckon is going to be playing finals footy here in a couple of months? Kicking things off with you, Harry.
Yeah, mate, I have to agree with you for the top 2. Jeeps and Brothers are looking very, very good. You know, their teams across the board are strong, and they say, you know, you're only as good as the team below you. That filters through. Their cultures are fantastic. They have guys sticking around. They have a great support system. And I think set piece is going to be a key thing coming into the finals. So I think Jeeps and Brothers will be there. In third place, I think South will be the ones running in. They have what it takes to get there. I think their back line is absolutely firing with the assets definitely available and returning players. I think their forwards are capable of doing what it needs to be done to get them there. Just about the consistency over 80 minutes and getting them around the park. And then in fourth place, I'm going to take the Dogs because I know my boys will get there. I feel like in the next 8-9 weeks, we will only build. And coming into that final time, we will be absolutely hissing.
Right, and Jay, mate, what are your thoughts on this one, mate?
Agree with Haz. 1 or 2, it's already locked up. If Brothers and Jeeps keep going on the same trajectory, come that second last round for the Wellesby Cup, whatever team wins that comes away with the minor premiership. Third spot, again, I've got to agree with Harry. Not something I like to admit, but South's looking good.
Yeah.
they've already got, as Harry said, the talent there. They've already got combinations. If their forward pack can fire and stay strong, if ET can get them playing 80 minutes of footy, with the amount of players coming back from the red system, they can't play 60 minutes of footy and expect to come away with the butter confection in those close matches. So if they can do that, they should be there. Now the final, this one's really, really tricky because I think I love East. I think they're really good, but Gordo's not there. That is absolutely massive. If Jack Frampton isn't playing 10, they don't win, in my opinion. So, and I think the ins they get from Super Rugby aren't what they need. UQ, they get some big ins, Harry Hockings, Angus Scott Young, potentially Tate McDermott, but they're not positions they need. They need front rowers, and they're not going to get that. So I think for mine, it comes down to two teams, West and Bond. Bond we saw last year can go on a run. They should get guys like Angus Blythe back, which will be absolutely massive to go to that really dominant tight five they've already got. On top of that, they've shown that they can go on runs. For the Doggies, they should be getting back Big Missy, Aussie, Joe Cotton from the Aussie under-20s, potentially Filippo Daugunu, Moses Sorovi. They're 5 massive ins. And they're 5 key positions that they need, a front row and some real class finishes on the flanks. If they get them, they will be absolutely red hot, and they could do what they did a couple of years ago and go on a run that gets them into the top 4. So it's got to go between the Doggies and Bond. And again, I hate to say it, but I agree with Harry. Those ends are huge.
Well,
God, it kills me that I agree with Harry this much.
Well, as we've mentioned, Jeeps and Brothers got the top 2 locked up. If we're going to separate the two of them, I think the Wellesby Cup clash in round 17 will probably determine who finishes on top. By that stage of the season and who they're all going to have back, I'm going to say I'm going to probably back Jeeps to finish in first. I don't see anyone quite matching them with set piece yet, and they've got the backline now to work off the platform that their forwards lay for them. And then you add the Smith twins, JP and Ruwan, back into the mix, as well as Freddie Burke and Falimi. I think it's going to be a hard day on the park for any forward pack that comes up against them. Brothers, obviously, that would then be in second, and then we mentioned there's probably 5 clubs that are going to probably be contesting these 3rd and 4th spots. Wests, they're going to get a couple of key guys back. Whether or not they've got the energy in the tight 5, mainly probably in the front row, to go the full 80 and match it with some of the bigger teams, I reckon that will be their defining point. We know they've got a classy young backline who can do great things, and then you add Filippo on the end of that, awesome. Souths, potentially very interesting depending on who they get back. Will we see Chris Fairways or Tia be playing for them? So they're definite contenders. Bond, they're going to get a couple of key guys back, like Angus Blythe, as we mentioned. Gav Luca in the front row. We already know their backline's potentially firing. UQ, get a couple of guys back. But whether or not they can play a hard brand of footy week in, week out, like we saw against Jeeps, we saw what these guys are capable of, but whether they can deliver that each round, I think it's going to be their challenging factor. And then the Tigers, I think the Tigers, outside of Brothers and Jeeps, have probably got the best forward pack in terms of what they offer.
Agreed.
Scrum time,
100%.
they're awesome. And then further back, you've got the 3 Fijian fellas absolutely killing it.
Yeah.
If those guys continue to fire, and then the back line can work out the combination between Phoenix Hunt, Eli Pills, Jack Frampton as the 3 ball players, because that's the first time they've all played together on the weekend against Brothers.
That's their biggest issue right now.
That is their biggest issue. If they can figure that out, they can probably work around missing Gordo, and then if they can slip into the 3rd and 4th, I think Gordo will be back for the finals, which would be massive. So if I've got to pick a 3 and a 4, it's tough, but I'm probably going to go with Souths as well. And then I'm probably, with my Tiger hat on, I've probably got to say Tigers for 4, but I think very well Bond could be the dark horse.
Agreed. This highlights just how contested it is. It is just, it's so hard to distinguish which team is going to be the team that wins week in, week out, because you never know. That's 5 teams right there that could beat any team in the competition on their day.
And I mean, North could still cause some upsets, but I just don't think that they're going to get the services of Matty McGahn and Duncan back in time for them to really have an impact and make that top 4. All right, folks. Well, that's it for another episode of The Breakdown. Thanks for joining me, Jay and Harry.
You love it, Sauce.
Cheers, Sauce again. Go Dogs.
Thanks for coming in, gents. All right, guys. Well, make sure you get out and support your Queensland Premier Rugby club this weekend in round 10 of the Newstead Brewing Hospital Challenge Cup. But if you can't make it to a game, which you should be at, we've got you covered. All 4 games are streamed live and free via redsrugby.com.au. In the meantime, follow us on Facebook, Queensland Premier Rugby, for more grassroots footy content.